We're going to start with Michael and his partner Violetta. He has a lived experience of retinitis pigmentosa and is incredibly talented and has got a great story to share, as well as will entertain us with his unique skills. I invite you to come up. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Well, hello, everybody. How are we doing this morning? It's all good. I brought some notes because, my memory is just not the best these days. I'm not that old, but, anyway. Well, my name is Michael Vaiasinni. I'm 32 years old. And as Michael was saying, I have retinitis pigmentosa. And I was diagnosed at 6 years old. Actually, at school, they found that I wasn't seeing the chalkboard very well. So they thought we better look into that. And I went for further testing. And at that time, it was a little tricky to pick up what I had because it was between retinal schisis and retinitis pigmentosa. But in the end, it was conclusive that it was retinitis pigmentosa. And that's what I live with today. I've been very lucky in the sense that I've managed to retain my vision for all these years. Even though I am legally blind now, for my early life, I was able to pretty much live normally, I could say, and get around, by myself. And I went on to do the same thing throughout my career as a musician, which I'll get on to talk about. But just on my diagnosis, it was actually quite interesting because I had retinitis pigmentosa the whole way along, but I also had short-sightedness. So that was something that was a little bit, obviously very easy to whack on a pair of glasses, but we didn't know that at that time. And it's long before I met Professor Grigg, which, by the way, where are you, Professor? Is he? There he is. I can still see you, sir. Yeah, looking good, looking good. Yeah, no, actually, Professor, thank you so much for having me today. And should I say thank you to the Safe Sight Institute for having me, because it's a pleasure to be here. And it is a pleasure also to be with all of you. But getting back to my diagnosis and treatment. So I lived with short-sightedness for a long time as well, which we didn't really know that was the case. We just thought it was RP. And I then went to a friend of my mother who's here today, who's an optometrist, and she said, just try on a pair of these glasses. And what was quite interesting was that I just obviously saw blurry for my entire life, and Mum was standing right in front of me, and I put on these glasses and I saw her face for the first time, which was really incredible and a very emotional moment. Obviously that helped me then to proceed into a career which I dearly love and now share with my gorgeous partner. So in my early career, I've always been a singer. I think having RP, it led me very much to music, not as much playing sports and things like that as much as I tried to and love to. I turned my attention lots to music, just sitting in my room all night listening to music. And funnily enough, being a good Italian boy, opera was my first choice, which my friends found a little bit strange. Since my first album that I bought was a Pavarotti album, they're like, okay, it's not quite right, but anyway. Nevertheless, I used to just sit up at night and really just listen constantly to operatic arias and classical music. And from there, I decided that I really would like to embark on a musical adventure. I didn't know where that adventure would take me, but I tried anyway. And this was very, very early on. I'm talking 6 years old. So I entered the school talent quest and I sung an Elvis song, which Dad put me onto, and I won it, and it gave me some sort of inspiration to keep going. And from there, I then decided that I wanted to get formal training as a vocalist. And I did. And from that moment, I won a scholarship, actually very kindly by the Kirby Foundation, who were actually looking for a singer who had some form of, let's say, disability, or in my case, visual impairment. And I happened to be the one that received the scholarship. And I got sent to Italy at the age of 18. And sort of all my dreams came true, because I thought, here it is, opera, music, and the chance to further the research of my condition. And so at 18 years old, I hopped on a plane and I moved my life over to Italy, which was an amazing journey for me, because I got to immerse myself in a culture that is of my background, and immerse myself in music, which I always listened to, let's say, from a distance. You know, you listen to all these great singers in, you know, as a child, Pavarotti, Andrea Bocelli, and you just dream one day I might get there. And this was the bridge that took me to the country where it was all happening in terms of music. And I had so many amazing experiences and actually realized a few things which I never actually thought might ever happen, but they did. And that was the opportunity to sing for the Pavarotti family. Unfortunately, I missed him by 3 years. He passed away 3 years before I got there, but his sister and his family invited me to sing at their house. And that was a little bit daunting, but anyway, this was a dream. And I also actually had the privilege of meeting Andrea Bocelli, who had always been an idol of mine for many reasons, and obviously somebody who is blind and has achieved an amazing career, an amazing musician, an incredible voice. And I might just tell you very quickly the story of meeting him, because it is it was very daunting, let's put it that way. I had a few friends in Parma, Italy, where I was staying, and they in the musician community and the opera singer community, and they had worked with Andrea Bocelli. And they sort of said to me, you know, who's your idol? Who's your idol? I said, oh, Andrea Bocelli. I mean, you know, who else? And they said to me, oh, good. You know, so, oh, what are you doing this weekend? I said, oh, just nothing really. So, do you want to go to the seaside? Yeah, let's go to the sea. Well, packed up the car and we head down to the seaside. Totally oblivious to what was happening. I didn't even connect it. You know. Anyway, we arrived at this villa with 2 amazing gates, and then they broke the news. They're like, we're at Andrea Bocelli's house today, and you're going to meet him, and you'll probably end up singing for him. So I died in that moment. I think the moment that I really died was that we entered the home, and we were waiting for him in his living area, and I heard him coming down the stairs singing in his own house. And I thought, oh my gosh, you know, just thinking back to all those years listening, and now we're here and this is happening. And nevertheless, he asked me to sing. And it was 5 minutes of coffee. And then he said, let's go to the piano. I want to hear you sing. And we stayed there for 2-3 hours and we just sung, you know, and that was the most amazing experience of my life, really. And it then went on with Andrea to develop into a beautiful friendship. And he also helped me immensely with my career. I also had the privilege in that time to travel around with a very, very renowned soprano, Norma Fantini, who sort of took me under her wing as a mentor and teacher, and as a full-blown opera singer, full diva. You know, we were traveling all the way around Europe, and I was just able to witness this career taking place in front of me. And you know, as that relates to my visual impairment, you know, I never saw it as a barrier. That was one of the things. It was difficult to, certainly, I mean, being on my own, and that was sort of the tough love about it, you know, really trying to manage traveling for the first time as a young person with this visual impairment, with RP, and, you know, try and make your flights and try and make sure that everything is, you know, that you're able to get places. And, you know, I always asked for assistance when I needed it. But to me, it was always like a challenge. And I tried to be as independent as possible and managed to achieve what I achieved in the end. And that was going on through Andrea to receive a record deal by Sugar Music in Italy, who took me on and didn't know who I was, but I started writing music at that time because I think one of the things living with RP, it made me very, and I'm sure a lot of people even here today that live with visual impairment, it makes you very sensitive to things. It makes you very sensitive to the world around you because you're not taking it all in visually. You're not taking it all in, okay, that's what that looks like. That's what you're, it's probably cliche to say, but you're feeling life more. And especially being a musician and living in the music industry in that country, I took everything on board. Everything was a new experience. Everything was, it was so rich in my soul. And I didn't plan on doing it, but then I started just jotting my experiences down on a piece of paper. And obviously we're still studying and singing classical music at that time. But it sort of developed into something that I didn't think it would, and that was songwriting. And through these life experiences that I just was taking in every single day of living over there and just embracing this new life from Australia to Italy, I just put it all down into music. And I felt like that was the best way. And it was totally unplanned because I didn't go over there as a singer-songwriter. I went over there as an opera singer, and that was my objective. And that's what I did for the longest time. But when Andrea came into my life and the record label came in, the singer-songwriter aspect of my music took priority. And really, I developed this huge passion for songwriting. And that's what it became. And I started to travel all around Europe and write music with a lot of different people in London and Berlin, and also moved to those places as well. Oopsies, be careful. Yeah, and music just completely, it was my everything, and songwriting became my everything. So I'm just so grateful to have had those experiences, despite, you know, not being able to obviously see properly in 20/20 vision, and just always be up against that challenge. But again, it was a motivation for me. It never set me back, or I never feel like it was a burden. It was always a challenge, and even going into songwriting sessions and writing music and singing, and even being on stage for that matter, which is obviously a very dangerous place, with wires and lights and everything everywhere. You know, not being able to fully see, that is obviously very dangerous. But once again, it never became a burden to me. It was just always a challenge. Let's get through it. Let's make it better than it otherwise would have been. So I feel very lucky to have experienced this life. And all the while, Professor Grigg and São Paulo, which is a huge hospital over in Milan, collaborated and actually found the actual gene of my RP, which was a huge thing, because for so long we never knew which type of RP it was. And it was, they found it. And I'm not going to try and say it because it's got so many letters and numbers, whichever gene it was, but they found it. And I mean, that was a huge feat for me. And I'm so grateful to Professor Grigg and the people over in, the professors over in Italy for that collaboration, because it was truly remarkable to have the technology to break through. And congratulations to you, Professor, for everything that you're doing and the Safe Side is doing. So just to go on to the next part, obviously we all suffered through COVID. COVID took me personally back home to Australia, since I was in the epicenter of the whole crisis in Milan, which is where I lived. Mum and Dad said, get on a plane and come home. I said, what? Don't worry about it. But honestly, it was one of the best life decisions that I could have made. It brought me home for a good part of 10 years. I lived this beautiful life of music and songwriting and collaborations, touring. But I did miss family a lot. You know, it was hard. Mum and dad I would see them, but not often enough. So when I came home during COVID, I guess it was a blessing through the darkness of COVID that obviously all of us experienced. It was a blessing to come home and spend some family time together and focus my efforts on writing a EP, which I put a lot of the content through the years of living over there into it, and released the EP, I think in 2021. So being back here in Australia and doing what we all did, the Zoom collaborations. So we made music through Zoom with a producer in Italy and myself being in a studio here, and it worked out. So I was very lucky to have experienced that as well. And probably my favorite part of the whole story, in 2021, at the late 2021, I was lucky enough to be a part of Carols in the Domain as an opera singer in the opera group there. And in previous years, I was very lucky as well to be a representation of Vision Australia for Carols by Candlelight in Melbourne, which it was a very proud achievement as well for me, coming from the background that I do. But in Carols in the Domain in 2021, something happened that I didn't think would happen. And I met this beautiful young lady over here, which is my partner, Violetta, which is, again, another blessing in life. She happened to be walking across the stage in rehearsal and caught my good eye. And that was it. The rest is history. And she is an amazing artist, a singer-songwriter as well. We, as well as being a couple, we decided to collaborate and put our efforts together to write music and perform. And we established Diamante, which is the name of our duo. So we have the privilege of working together, being together, and making music. And so this probably is the final piece of the adventure. But it's been a great adventure, and it's obviously being in music, as I'm sure many of you know, there's lots of ups and downs and twists and turns. But honestly, I couldn't be happier. Today, you know, I suppose in the last 2, maybe 3 years, I did have a slight degeneration in the vision, which again was a new chapter again. And it was just something that, you know, you say to yourself, let's just get through it. Let's turn it into a positive, because I think when it started to happen, and for those of you with visual impairment here, probably share the same experience. When it started to happen, that you start noticing, oh, I used to be able to see that and I can't. It starts to put you in a place of, I guess a sort of depression, where you think, you know, how am I going to make it through? And, you know, I can't do what I did before. But you know what? You find a way, and you find new things that make you happy. And look, I have so much confidence in what the Safe Side Institute is doing, and Professor Grigg, who follows me. You guys are doing such a great job, and honestly, my compliments to you. And thank you so much for all the hard work you guys do for us, which is ultimately the patient. And, you know, we're just so grateful. And I'm sure I can speak on behalf of other people with visual impairment. We are so grateful, because it means the world to know that you know, somebody's looking out for you. And that's something I'm very grateful for. And with that, I'm
just going to drop in with a couple of questions. Yes, exactly. So I've got a couple here, and we'll take some from the floor as well. So that's a really impressive journey from a 6-year-old just starting school, who finds a passion for singing through to Italy, Germany, the UK, the world, Botticelli, Pavarotti. I suppose during that journey, there's a lot of years where you don't know where you're going to end up. There's a lot of years at school. There's a lot of years outside of school. As you discover what your side is and what your needs are, what type of supports were there for you? What are the things where you had to work it out yourself? What are the things the system provided or the people provided?
That's interesting, actually. There was a lot of it that, because the vision in my case wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. So school was actually quite difficult in terms of being able to keep up, because obviously your teacher's going to jot everything down on the whiteboard, and everybody else is zooming by doing it, and you're a little bit stuck. And at that point, obviously the first years of high school and school were very difficult because I wasn't sure what to do. And I think just going back to even earlier years, you're even quite confused of what's going on. I mean, I didn't even really understand what was happening, because I think in those days we had the chalkboards, and I was thinking, what are they doing? Like they're writing something, but I'm not seeing anything. So there was that element of confusion until it could be obviously identified that, there was a problem. I was very lucky to have Vision Australia as well come to school and help out with a few things. I managed to have an assistant teacher to help me copy a lot of the work at school. So that helped a lot. And I really had great experiences towards the end of my high school years. The exams were in big A3. Everybody knew when I turned the page, because yeah, I really had a good time at school, and leaving school and sort of going into the world and traveling. Honestly, it was something that I did very independently. And I have to say thank you to these things here as well, because they've helped a lot to, I mean, if you need to get on a flight or whatever, it's just, you've got the phone, you can enlarge things. It's helped immensely. I mean, even as of late, in these last 2 years, I've lost the ability to be able to pick up a piece of paper and read it. And I used to love reading, and I was like, but with the phone and with all of the accessibility that you have with these technology, it's tremendous. And I'm really grateful that at least, you don't have to stop reading. You can. It takes a bit longer, but you can use different functions to facilitate that. So.
Fantastic. I've got a few more questions here, but is there anyone on the floor who'd like to ask a question? Okay, I'll get my questions in. So did you find, because I'm guessing you wouldn't have just walked into a doctor's and come out with, this is what your eyesight is, this is what it means, and this is where you're going to go. I'm guessing there was some degree of uncertainty, maybe continuing. So did you find that made it difficult to communicate what your needs were? What level of advocacy did you have to have for yourself? Did you have other people who were able to advocate for you?
There was, I suppose that was a bit challenging. The confusion, particularly in the early years, was immense, because I think especially for my family, and I'm sure a lot of people that have gone through it experience the same thing. You don't really know what to communicate, because you know your capabilities and what you can do, but you don't really know what you have before it was diagnosed. And I mean, I underwent an extreme amount of tests back in the day to try to figure it out. And also being a very young specimen, I suppose, it was, they were trying to understand as much as possible. And this was long before I met Professor Grigg, unfortunately. I wish I met you earlier. Yeah, it was very difficult, but I was very lucky to have my family that were able to advocate it for me, because they were always involved. Even though different organizations, VA and different organizations tried their best to get involved and advocate for it, but it really had to come from internal, which was the family. Yeah.
And did, music is quite a lot of detail on a page. Did RP affect your ability to access music in formal terms? Did you need assistance with that? How did it, I suppose, shape your music, your access to music, and the way it formed you as a musician?
I think, honestly, I really thank God for RP in a way, because I always loved music, but I think it really amplified my passion. Music in the formal context was always, it was particularly doing classical music, which is, like you said, a lot of notes on a page and a lot of, technical things, and which vision is absolutely necessary. It wasn't easy. I went through musicianship and diploma of music here at the Conservatory of Music, which that was very much essential to the study. But again, I feel very lucky because I always had assistance in terms of, if it was even just a simple thing like making the page bigger. And when it came to the process of learning music, it was heavily based on, I suppose that was a different method, as opposed to just looking at the page a couple of feet away and thinking, okay, I'll just sight sing that. It was a different method for me. It was a matter of picking up that page, looking at it very closely, digesting it, really relying a lot on memory, as opposed to going into a rehearsal, say, and sight reading, which what everybody else was doing. But my method was different because I thought I need to know this from memory before I get there. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So,
and I'll ask one last question, unless someone else from the floor, before you entertain us all. You've had the lived experience in Australia, in Italy, in Germany, in the UK. Do you find much different in terms of the world, navigating the world, advocating for yourself, the services that are there, how well the world is adapted to the needs of everyone?
It's only getting better and better, even through the experiences, and I suppose living in the period that I lived abroad. It is only getting better. I can see that even in terms of the technology, in terms of the research, and just in terms of even, when there's so many more facilities now than there ever was. And this is only a plus to our community because it just makes life easier for us. And it also gives a deeper understanding to people. I suppose, it's very difficult. I've always thought it's very difficult to imagine what somebody else is living, or, whatever it may be. And particularly when it comes to disability or visual impairment, in my case, I feel like there is a lot more of awareness out there now. And that helps people in my position so much more, because you can go to a library now and say, actually, I have quite low vision, so do you mind? And yes, of course, nobody looks at you too puzzled anymore, which is a plus. And so I am grateful that the world is progressing the way it is. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to your performance.